If you're like me and you're always looking for new open source projects to power your home, you've probably came across the name FreeNAS, or as it's now known, TrueNAS, when researching storage solutions. However, if you haven't, TrueNAS is a free, open source, network-attached storage software appliance, try saying that 5 times quickly, built on the ZFS file system and developed by IX Systems. It allows you to use your own hardware, or hardware you can purchase from IX Systems, to easily add centralized storage to your network that is accessible from any device. TrueNAS has tons of other features built in too, like plugins that provide one-click installs for Plex, Nextcloud, Home Assistant and others, the ability to run virtual machines, and built-in replication if you want to make sure that your data is synced off-site in case of disaster. TrueNAS is a really cool project and is one of the open source projects that I've been using for the longest time, almost daily since 2012. There's only one other project I've been using for as long as that, so it's definitely right up there with my favourites. With TrueNAS 12 right around the corner, there's never been a better time to jump into TrueNAS if you haven't already done so. So today we're going to take a quick look at the TrueNAS Core 12 installation procedure, along with a basic setup and a quick overview of the interface. I'm going to be installing TrueNAS on this PowerEdge server, but that's not to say you need a big server or anything to run TrueNAS, far from it. TrueNAS will run on a wide variety of hardware. Hardware selection for TrueNAS is probably a topic that requires its own dedicated video for if you're interested, so I'm going to leave a link of hardware recommendations in the description down below. With that said, I'm going to put this server into another room so that I don't have to listen to its fans whine on anymore, and then we will jump back into this tutorial. Oh, and just a quick warning, I'm probably going to interchange the words FreeNAS and TrueNAS a lot in this video. IX Systems recently renamed the project from FreeNAS to TrueNAS in order to merge projects with their enterprise offering, which I do like. However, 8 years of calling it FreeNAS does take a little bit of getting used to, so I do apologise. Okay, so with that monstrosity out of the room, we can now focus on the installation process. So you're going to need a USB stick in order to download the FreeNAS installation, and we're going to burn it onto the USB stick. And then we're going to install it to one of the disks in our server. So let's go ahead and do that now. First thing we're going to want to do is head over to the Balena website and download a program called Balena Etcher, which we have used in previous videos. This is going to allow us to burn the FreeNAS image onto our USB stick. After Balena Etcher is finished downloading, we're going to head to the TrueNAS website and download TrueNAS Core 12. It's worth noting that TrueNAS 12 is currently in release cycle 1, which is after the beta cycle. However, I don't expect much to change, just minor bugs to be fixed between now and the full release. But it is worth mentioning that it is currently in release cycle 1, so just be careful where you deploy this. Okay, so once you have Balena Etcher and TrueNAS downloaded to your machine, go ahead and fire up Balena Etcher. You'll also want to insert your blank USB stick at this point. Make sure that this is a blank USB stick, as any data on here will be overwritten. With Balena Etcher fired up and the USB stick inserted, go ahead and click the Flash from File button. Select the TrueNAS 12 install, then click Select Target. Then highlight your USB stick and click Select, and then press the Flash button. Balena Etcher is now burning the TrueNAS install onto our USB stick. With the installation media now ready, you'll want to go ahead and insert this into your TrueNAS server. Then power the server up and boot to USB stick. With our installation disk now inserted into the server, we can go ahead and power the server on. I'm going to be using the IPMI or iDRAC feature of this server. It's a feature that allows us to remotely control the server from another location. It's a standard feature across all modern servers. Make sure to instruct your server to boot from the USB storage so that we can start the installation process. Once booted to the USB stick, we're going to land at the TrueNAS menu. Either leave it or press enter to boot to the installation process. A few seconds later, we land at the install menu. Go ahead and select option number 1 to start the installation. TrueNAS will then ask you which device you want to install the OS to. In the past, most people would have told you to install to a USB stick. However, if you have a free small SSD lying about, that is a really good option and probably the preferred option at this point. In the menu, use the arrow keys to highlight your SSD and press the spacebar to select it. Notice the star appears in the left-hand column. Then press the OK button to continue the setup. Next, you'll be asked to create a root password. Make sure to remember this as we will need it in the next step. Select your boot option, either BIOS or UEFI, and then the installation procedure will begin. The install process takes literally a couple of minutes depending on your hardware. Once done, remove your installation media and reboot the server to start the TrueNAS setup. Once the OS has finished booting, we will then land at this menu, which is the TrueNAS console menu. We don't need to do anything here apart from take note of the IP address, which is located at the very bottom. So mine is 10.2.11.142. Let's head over to a browser and then we can configure everything from there. So after entering the IP address into the browser, we then land at the TrueNAS login screen. Go ahead and enter root as the username and then enter the password that we created earlier. We then land at the main TrueNAS dashboard. This is where you can configure absolutely everything about your TrueNAS system, as well as get reports on performance. The main dashboard gives us a bit of information like the version that we are currently running. So we are running TrueNAS 12 RC1 as stated. It gives us the host name, the uptime, and it also gives us vital information about the CPU, memory, and network status. The first thing that we're going to do is create some storage, and then from there we're going to add a share so that our storage can be accessed from anywhere on the network. Using the left-hand menu, head over to the Storage tab and then click on Pools. You'll then want to click the Add button in the top right-hand corner and click on Create a New Pool. Next, the Pool Manager window will pop up and you'll see that all the storage devices that I currently have attached to my TrueNAS system are listed in the table here. You'll see I have 6 500GB disks as well as a 240GB SSD. You'll also notice this Suggest Layout button. If you click this, then TrueNAS will give us a same configuration for our hard drives. You're also free to create your own configuration by highlighting the disks and then using the arrow on the right hand side to add them into a new VDEV. Once all the disks are added, you can then change the configuration type by using this drop down and selecting the RAID Z level that you want. I'm going to select the RAID Z2. We also need to give our volume a name, so I'm going to use the classic tank. Once done, scroll down to the bottom and click Create. Click the Confirm button and Create Pool. Once that's done, you'll now see that we have the tank pool created with 1.74 terabytes of free space. From there, you'll then want to head over to the right hand side and click on the 3 dots and click Add Dataset. Firstly, we need to give our dataset a name. So I'm going to go ahead and call this Big Data. I'm going to leave all the defaults for this tutorial. Go ahead and click the Submit button. And once that's done, you'll see we now have a dataset. From there, if you then click the 3 dots on the right hand side of the dataset, you'll see that we then get some options like setting quotas and editing permissions. Permissions in TrueNAS probably need their own separate video to explain. However, let's go ahead and create a basic account for now. Head up to the Accounts menu and click on Users. You'll see that for now we only have our root username listed. There are other accounts, but they're hidden by default. Click on the Add button in the top right hand corner. So I'm going to enter some details, create the username that I want, and you can set an email if you wish. Create a password as well. It's important to remember this because we will need it in the next step. Enter your password and confirm it twice. You can leave everything as default apart from the Microsoft account checkbox down at the bottom. Tick this and then click Submit. Cool, so we now have a new user account. Head back to the Storage tab and then click on Pools. Back on the Pools page, we'll then want to highlight our Big Data dataset, and we're then going to add a second dataset for our account. We give it a name, same as before, and then click the Submit button. Click the drop down on Big Data and then select the options for the new dataset. Click on Edit Permissions, and this time I'm going to change the owner to be my new account. You'll also want to change the group to be the same. Tick the apply user and apply group. And then from there you can set the permissions as you see fit. You can lock out other accounts if you wish. I'm going to leave it as the default for now, which only provides the owner with write access. Click save, and then we now have our data sets created. Next, we're going to create a share so that our storage is accessible from our Windows machine here. Head over to the sharing tab and then click on Windows Shares. In the right hand side, click add, and then here we select our data set. Using the drop downs, we select the secret data location, and we can leave all the options as default here. Click on submit, and click on enable service to enable the Samba share. You'll notice a pop-up appear which will ask us to configure the ACL, which we can go ahead and configure now. The next window will ask us to create an ACL or an access control list. I'm going to use the preset, so you can go ahead and click the select a preset ACL. And from the drop down, we're then going to click on the restricted ACL. Click on continue. And now you'll notice on the right hand side that our access control list for our share is now created with only the owner and the group allowed access. Click on the save button to confirm that, and our share is now created. With our share created, it's now time to give it a test. Head over to a Windows File Explorer, select the computer menu from the top and click Map Network Drive. Select the drive letter you want, and then from here we're going to enter / followed by the IP address of our TrueNAS machine. So go ahead and enter / 10.2.11.142. One cool trick here is when creating your user account in TrueNAS, if you use the same username and password as your Windows machine uses, Windows will actually automatically pass through the credentials using single sign-on, and you won't have to enter any details at all. However, I didn't do this, so I'm going to go ahead and click the connect using different credentials. At the end of the IP address, we also want to enter a / and then the name of the share that we created earlier. So mine was secret data. After deciding on which options you're going to use, click the finish button, and then we will get a pop-up asking for our credentials. So this is the same username and password that we created in the accounts section earlier. I suggest using the remember my credentials so that you do not have to enter this every time. Tick that and click OK, and you'll see that network drive is created straight to our storage. I can then go ahead and just do whatever I want here. I can create folders, test. I can also create files, test, open that, save that. And because of our ACLs, only I have permission to do that. If you want to add other users to be able to write into this share, you can add them onto the ACL also. Heading back to the disk overview in Windows, you can see that our network drive is now showing, and it gives us the total capacity of that drive. Cool. So that is a quick and easy setup on how to create a dataset on TrueNAS, and also how to create a share that we can then connect to using Windows. Of course, you can create other share types for Apple devices as well as Linux/Unix systems. With our basic setup now complete, let's take a quick look at the UI and where you might change some options. I won't take you through everything today because there are a ton of options and it can become overwhelming. However, I will show you some of the basic options and where you do certain things. So if we head back to the dashboard, you will notice it looks slightly different because we now have a pool added to the system. So it now shows us information about that pool, and we can click on the data to see more information like the datasets. Moving down to the system menu, the first thing you'll probably want to do is head into general, and then you will want to set your time zone. This is also where you can save and upload configs. So saving configs is super important. If your TrueNAS OS dies and you have a backup of the config, you can literally plug your disks into a new system, upload the config, and your TrueNAS system will be back exactly as it was. I'd suggest taking regular backups of the configs whenever you make a change. The next thing you'll probably want to do is configure the root email. Head back up to accounts and then into users and select the root username. Click on edit. And then you'll want to enter an email into the root account. The reason being that if your TrueNAS device sends you any alerts about disks being low, disks failed, disks rebuilding, anything like that, they will go to the root email account. So you definitely need to have that configured in order to monitor what's going on. Another thing you might want to do is enable two-factor authentication. I believe this is a TrueNAS 12 feature, but I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me. Head down to the System tab and then into two-factor authentication. You can configure things like Google Authenticator or the LastPass Authenticator using this menu here. That just gives your TrueNAS system an extra level of security. From here, we're going to head into the Tasks menu and then into the S.M.A.R.T tests. So S.M.A.R.T is an industry standard way of testing hard drives. So it's recommended to set up regular S.M.A.R.T tests on your hard drives just to ensure that everything is working as it should be and there are no failed drives. You can configure different types of tests from long, short, or conveyance, and you can also select the disks you want to include in that test. I suggest setting up a sane schedule to do all of these tests on your hard drive. Some can be done more frequently than other tests because some take longer to complete. Next, if we head into the replication tasks, this is where you can configure TrueNAS to replicate with another TrueNAS system, be it on-site or off-site, where it will automatically sync all of your data into another system. This is super handy for being able to restore data in a disaster, and I've used it many a time in the enterprise. From replication tasks, if we head into scrub tasks, and you'll see that there is a default scrub task already created. A scrub is where your TrueNAS will go through and check the consistency of your data for any errors. Just because your data is on the disk, it doesn't mean it's correct and as it should be. So a scrub will go through and check the consistency of the data and attempt to recover any errors. This is quite an intensive task and it can take a while to complete depending on the type of data you have and how much of it. So I wouldn't suggest running one at crazy high frequency, but something like every 2 weeks or so should be quite a sane configuration. Next, if we head into the network tab and then onto network summary, this will print out information about all the network devices that you currently have installed in your system. You can also click interfaces. You can then add any additional network cards you want to the system. You can see here that I have 2 network cards listed. However, I'm only using a single interface for now. Next, if we head down to the storage tab and then into snapshots. Snapshots can allow you to revert to a point in time before your data was modified. Really handy for restoring files that have been overwritten, deleted, or modified in some way. Heading down to the services menu, this is where you can enable or disable features of TrueNAS as you see fit. You can enable things like the OpenVPN client or server, which are new features in TrueNAS 12, or enable things like SSH if you want to have that feature turned on. Now, if we head down to the plugins menu, plugins provide one-click installs for many popular services like Plex, MB, Nextcloud, Home Assistant, as well as a variety of other things. If you choose where you want to store the data for the plugins and click choose, and then from there in the top left you have the IX Systems plugins. So these are plugins provided by IX Systems, and you also have the community plugins. You can see there's quite a large list of them there. So we can go ahead and click on something like the Plex Media Server plugin and click on install. We then just need to give the plugin a name, so we're going to call it Plex, and we can just leave the defaults, click on save, and then TrueNAS will automatically install that plugin for us. This can take a bit of time depending on your download speed and hardware speed, but the end result is worth it. You can see that the plugin was installed successfully, and it also gives us the URL to access our new Plex server. Click on that, and then we are straight into Plex. So you can see just how easy it is to use plugins within TrueNAS. Finally, we then have the reporting menu, which shows us loads of useful stats about our system, things from CPU temperature, CPU usage, system load. You can also select things like the network or disks and get loads of interesting stats that we want to look at. It's really useful for working out performance bottlenecks and just generally checking on the health of your system. Moving down to virtual machines, TrueNAS can host virtual machines through Beehive Hypervisor. They do work fairly well, however it is kind of limited what you can do compared to something like ESXi. Moving on to the system processes, this is just a quick view into what is consuming the most CPU and memory on your system. Then finally we can click on the shell, and that will give us a quick window into the shell of our TrueNAS system. Some other quick menu items are the task manager in the top right. So you can see that my plugin is currently creating, and you get a list of all the historic tasks that have went on. We can also use the alerts button, and if we click in here, normally alerts like disk usage or disk failed or things like that would be shown here. Click on the cog and then click on preferences. We can then go in and change a couple of options, but the main thing is you can change your theme up at the top here. So click on that, we can change to the blue theme. Click on that, we can change to the Dracula theme, and you can also create your own themes in the bottom right hand corner. The final option is the ability to reboot your server from the top right hand menu, so you can log out, restart, or shut down your TrueNAS system. And so there we have it, guys. Hopefully you have now installed TrueNAS Core 12 and you've seen all the benefits that TrueNAS has to offer. If you have any further questions or you're stuck with the installation process, make sure to drop a comment down below and I will do my best to help you. Also, let me know if you want to see any further TrueNAS videos or other videos just like this. While you're down there, make sure to hit that like button and get subscribed. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.